So far, in nearly 4 years of my channel, I made only 2 dedicated episodes about sleep paralysis. If you missed them, I'll leave the links in the description. But even in other episodes, sleep paralysis, along with dreams, forms often the most prominent part of paranormal experiences for ordinary people with no particular spiritual ability. Sleep paralysis itself is physiologically explainable, or at least so scientists claim, that it's just a moment of incoordination of a awoken brain and still sleeping body. And the terrifying visions you see during the paralysis is just a trick your brain plays on you. Indeed, some of today's stories indicates that the poster already understands the scientific mechanism of sleep paralysis and try to deal with it calmly. But, of course, these stories wouldn't have made a cut if they were just any benign sleep paralysis. How do you explain a sleep paralysis that leaves an actual physical mark? Or when the experience is shared by multiple people at the same time? Or when it has actual implications in real life? So, here are 8 allegedly true stories about scary and weird sleep paralysis experiences. As always, handpicked, translated and narrated by host, Anthony. I enjoy reading ghost stories, but more of an all-around non-believer. But what a friend of mine recounted has made me have a second thought about it. One day I was reading ghost stories on the internet, as you do. My friend who came by saw it and said, "Why do you read such a thing?" "It's fun, isn't it?" I said. But he was serious and told me it was nothing to take lightly because he experienced something weird himself. He often gets a sleep paralysis. Most of them are unpleasant, but benign. Not always, though. One night his sleep was disturbed by the sound of a little boy talking and laughing. Could it be his little cousin, he initially thought? But there was no way he would be visiting at that hour of the day. He was too scared to open his eyes and check, and just stayed put shivering till the dawn broke. He went to the bathroom to wash his face, and was shocked to see, all over his face, were small handprints, as if from a little kid. He rubbed and washed off handprints till his face got red. Now, this friend is really usually very serious and earnest character as I know him, so I don't think it's just a made-up story. Besides, the fear in his face as he talked about the handprints was so palpable too. Last summer, I and 7 other friends went on a weekend trip together. We rented a holiday cottage. For the number of people, we needed a sizable one, and we were happy to be able to find one for an unusually low charge. So, as typically goes on such a trip, we drank, chattered, and played silly games into the late night. In the end, 4 of us retired to the room to sleep, while the other 4, including myself, were carrying on with the drinks and chats. Then we saw one girl, who had gone to bed earlier, crawling out of the room on all 4s. She slowly moved towards the hallway, and then started bumping her head to the fridge which was on the way. And then she crawled back to the room. We just bursted into giggles. Was she so drunk or sleepwalking? Quick, take a video to show her in the morning. But soon, our amusement turned to bewilderment when she repeated the routine for the 3rd time. We shook her hard to wake her up from that trance state. When she got around, she started crying a bit, and then curled herself up at one corner of the living room to fall asleep again. It left us all spooked that we too wrapped up for the night. Following morning, we asked her what that was all about, and noticed not just she, but the other three who went to bed early with her, changed the color of their faces. Apparently, all four of them experienced sleep paralysis at the same time, and while paralyzed, they all saw a female ghost with wild, long hair looking down on them. The ghost then, as if she had made her choice, grabbed the poor girl by her hair and started dragging her out. As the last desperate attempt to resist, she bumped into the fridge, which loosened the grip of the ghost, crawled back to the room, only to be dragged back out by the ghost for 3 times. And all the while the other 3 had to helplessly witness what was going on. I shared my dormitory room with a roommate. We got along very well and got close enough to share deeper thoughts and concerns with each other. At the time, I suffered sleep paralysis frequently. It was so bad that I almost felt uneasy to go to bed, and long-term poor sleep was affecting my daytime too. Anybody who had sleep paralysis would understand how helpless it makes one feel and how desperately one hopes for somebody to wake one up from the state. So I asked my roomie that should she ever find me struggling or moaning in bed, she should wake me up. One day we were preparing for the midterm into the late night. I got so tired and went to bed first. But as soon as I started falling asleep, I felt that familiar but always unpleasant sensation, heaviness pressing down on my chest as if something mounting on me, a sure sign that I was getting a sleep paralysis. I called out for my roomie, but she didn't respond. I couldn't dare to open my eyes for fear of seeing weird things. All I could do was to struggle to move and squeeze out a shout. But then I finally felt her hand shaking me to wake up. "Are you all right?" Thank God, it was my roomie. I opened my eyes and saw her worrying face. "With your eyes closed, you can't see me," she said. And with that her mouth torn up ear to ear, and her eyes went all black. It wasn't my roomie. The ghost tricked me to open my eyes. That was the scariest sleep paralysis I experienced. Currently, I'm living with my boyfriend. I don't know how you'd take it, but both I and my boyfriend have the so-called third eye. I'm not sure about boyfriend's case, but in my case, it's definitely what runs in my family. My mom often has a very accurate precognitive dreams, and my dad can sometimes not only see spirits, but also communicate with them. Boyfriend's spiritual power is weaker than mine. He rather senses the presence than actually sees it, and only when the presence has particularly strong aura too. But he has one unique power. Despite numerous experiences, I still fear ghosts. Boyfriend then would hug me when I'm scared, and through the physical contact with me, he seems to be able to see what I saw and feel what I sensed. And this happened last February. Both back from work, exhausted, we were fast asleep together. But I woke up in the middle of the night with some noise of somebody scratching the floor with long nails. When I opened my eyes groggily, I saw a woman with long hair crouched down and scratching the floor. The moment I registered her, she too looked up at me, and with that, my body was paralyzed, and the woman started walking round and round the room. Boyfriend woke up from my moaning. He shook me to wake up, but the paralysis was not broken. He asked me many times what was up, but all I could utter through teeth was, "Ghost! Ghost!" before I passed out in the end. Then I had a dream. I was in a bus all alone. In my hand was a shopping bag, and inside of it was full of vegetables like leek, potatoes, onions, and carrots. I tried to get off the bus at a stop, but the bus passed it, and I had to get off at the next stop. On the bench at the bus stop were sitting two girls from my high school. I recognized their faces, but because none of them were actually my friends, I just turned around. But they stopped me calling, "Hey, sister." They called me sister instead of my name. "Sister, we are going on a field trip tomorrow. Can't we crash at your place tonight?" They spoke in unison. I thought I could not put them up when my boyfriend was home, so simply replied, "No." The girls stood there like statues with no responses, but as I walked away, I heard them whispering, "What a pity! We could have taken her with us." I was surprised and turned back, but they were gone by then. When I woke up, it was already in the morning. Boyfriend recounted what he saw while he was holding me. Of a woman mounting on my chest and strangling me, while she laughed out loud like a maniac. I looked limp and unconscious, as if I were already dead. He also saw another female ghost on the edge of the bed, whom I hadn't recognized myself. She grabbed me by my feet and tried to pull me off the bed, while the first ghost was still strangling me. Boyfriend held on to me and shouted at them, but they only cackled and carried on, and he had to keep facing them off till the morning broke. I shudder because there's a certain connection between my dream and what boyfriend saw. Those two women, were they really trying to take me away? In the second year of high school, it wasn't any normal day shortly after the midterms. I wasn't much of a hard-working student and would often doze away during class and carry on sleeping into the recess. It must have been break between the second and third class, and I got sleep paralysis. It was the first time ever I had a sleep paralysis. I was more amused than scared. Wow, this is what people call sleep paralysis. How curious, I thought. It was pretty noisy around me. Why were my mates so unusually loud? I wondered and opened my eyes. What I saw were not my mates, but a whole lot of shadow figures swarming around. I wasn't superstitious at all and tried to explain it rationally. Maybe sleep paralysis rendered my eyesight funny, I guessed. But why are they all so loudly roaming around anyway? Did a fight break out or something? And then I heard somebody humming from the front of the classroom. Logically, it didn't make sense that I could hear it at all among all the noises, but it rang so clearly in my ears as if it had directed right at me. The initial amusement quickly turned to fear when I realized the humming approaching closer and closer to me. I still could not move, so I just rolled my eyes as far forward as possible to see who the hummer was. But before I could detect anything, the humming was right behind me. And then, "I'm here," said a voice right in my right ear. With a startle, I could finally break the paralysis and jumped up from the desk. There were just 4 or 5 mates in the classroom, and it was quiet. Neither those black figures nor the noise they made were from them. I think that experience connected me to, I don't know, a different dimension of the world, and I witnessed a few more weird things, including an out-of-body experience. But the first remains always the sharpest in my memory. People talk about precognitive dreams, but have anybody heard of precognitive sleep paralysis? I haven't. But nonetheless, I do get occasional sleep paralysis that hinted at what was to come. Now, when I get a sleep paralysis, I tend to get an aural sensation, like a high-pitched beep or sometimes even people talking. But then in one occasion, I got paralyzed and heard very faint music. It got gradually bigger and clearer, enough to recognize as a military march. I hardly ever listened to that type of music, but its particular rhythm and atmosphere was unmistakable. Following evening, at the family dinner, my younger brother announced his application to a military band was accepted. He didn't mention it to any family member until he got the result that day. Maybe it was mere coincidence, but I was amused with the connection between the news and what I heard in the sleep paralysis. On other occasion, I got sleep paralysis and heard somebody saying in my ear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, again. It repeated over and over again. I was scared and just hoped it'd pass soon. Eventually the sentence reduced down to number 5 and repeated 5, 5, 5, 5 endlessly. Following day I came back home late from school and found fire engines in front of my apartment building. Apparently there was a fire in one apartment right below my family's floor and sadly killed 2 little kids. My family lived on the 6th floor, and the fire was on the 5th floor. Again, it could have been just a coincidence, but it left me in chills nonetheless. I'm just an ordinary middle schooler. I do enjoy horror stories, but I've never had any paranormal experiences, not even a sleep paralysis. Until the recent school field trip, that is. On the first night of the field trip, I fell asleep, but woke up abruptly only to find I could not move my body. I wanted to call for my mates who were sleeping next to me, but I could not even make any sound. It was the first sleep paralysis for me, so I wasn't just sure what to do. Then I felt piercing pain in my leg. I rolled my eyes down, and there was a woman in scarlet red dress and with messy long hair, and she was eating my leg. I was shocked and terrified, but I couldn't do anything but watch on. I think the woman sensed I was watching. Her head slowly lifted from my leg until our eyes met. And then she jumped towards me. I passed out then. When I woke up in the morning, the first thing I felt was the pain in my leg. I thought of the woman of the previous night and quickly looked down. There wasn't a woman anymore, but my leg bore a large fresh bruise. Apparently a wall clock fell and hit my leg during the night. I could not properly walk around for the rest of the field trip and just had to stay by my teacher. Problem is, I think the woman followed me back home. Now it became almost a routine that I get a sleep paralysis and see the woman in red, and she would always drop something on me, my bag, water bottle, a book. I told my parents about what I was suffering, but my parents are not spiritual at all and do not take me seriously. "It's all because you exhaust yourself to stay up till late. Quit that computer game," was all they said. But I think even my parents seems to think something was off since what happened just last week. Without fail, I got paralyzed, and the red woman appeared. And this time, she started to cackle creepily. And with that, the ceiling lamp fell on me. When I managed to break the paralysis, the lamp had landed on my legs, and the injury it left was severer than anything before. I had to get a cast on my left leg. The red woman still visits me every night. She hasn't dropped anything since the lamp incident, but she would cackle staring at me. I feel helpless. Could anybody help me? I may look sturdy, but in truth rather fragile 20-something-year-old woman, with some spiritual sensitivity, if you believe in such a thing. Basically, I sense spiritual presences, nothing too serious. Not anymore, but a few years ago I worked for a company in Cheonan City. Their welfare for the employees was pretty good and provided a decent dormitory. Unfortunately, its location was a bit off. The mountain at the back of the dorm building gave off rather eerie energy, as well as the building itself sat on the intersection. Noise aside, according to traditional shamanism, it's where ghostly energy pulls. Indeed, I sensed quite a few presences around the building, and my room itself was rather shady and chilly too. But over the years, I've learned just let things be. No point to get scared or anxious. After all, most ghosts are benign. But there seemed this one particular ghost among them that really tested my patience, because it constantly disturbed my sleep. It would make noises and whisper when I sleep, or even deliberately step on my arms and legs. And after a particularly long and tiring night shift, I was so exhausted I didn't bother to take a shower and went straight to bed. And damn, I got sleep paralysis almost immediately. The ghost once again took an advantage of the situation and disturbed with the whispers and cackles in my ears. Oh, give me a slack. I'm effing tired to death today. I wanted to yell, but my lips were frozen.
I'm gonna make your night a hell all night long. I'll let you sleep here on my playground.
The ghost rapid-fired. I guess a ghost doesn't need to breathe in between.
This is fun, isn't it? It's your own fault. Enjoy more till you die.
Okay, the quick wrapping up the ghost was one thing, but it also jumped on bed around me, making it really impossible just to ignore and fall back to sleep. I was just back from the night shift, and I desperately needed the rest. The sheer anger exploded, and it let my tongue and lips move finally. Shut up! Just shut them out if you're dead already, or I'll kill you again! I didn't know I knew so many swear words, and like in a rap battle, I rapid-fired back at the ghost. I think it caught the ghost by surprise. It kept quiet quite a while, and said,
Shit, she's not supposed to do this.
And with that, the paralysis broke, and the ghost disappeared. Moral of the story? Don't let a ghost have its way. A year ago, I entered university and moved into the dormitory. It was just one ordinary night of late spring. I wasn't anyway wasted with drinks or overtly tired with assignments, just a very ordinary night. I went to bed early as my usual routine was, but woke up in the middle of the night with thirst. I usually sleep very deep, but the thirst was so intense, like on a winter night in the room with a heater on high. The parched sensation in my throat was so unpleasant I had to get up. Naturally, I wanted to go and get some water, but I couldn't move. It felt like somebody was sitting on my chest. I squinted my eyes to see, and saw a silhouette by the balcony door. Her long hair was let down, and her white dress had stains here and there. I realized it was a sleep paralysis. I've never had one, but read a lot about other people's experiences, so just thought to move my fingers and toes to break it as most people seem to advise. I didn't feel particularly disturbed. It was just a sleep paralysis. Just let things be, and it should pass soon. But I was wrong. Soon I felt something wrapping around my throat and strangling me. With that, weird sound filled my ears. I couldn't understand any of it, but it sounded like when a song is played in reverse. The grip of my throat got tighter, the noise in my ears got louder. I desperately called for my roommate, but all I could muster was some dry moan. Tears filled my eyes. Is this it? Am I going to die this way? The weight on my chest got relentlessly heavier, and I saw the dark silhouette approaching to me closer and closer.
Go away! Get lost, you bastard!
My roommate suddenly shouted, and with that I felt the weight lifting off from my chest, and soon I could finally move again. I checked on my roommate, and found her deep in a sleep. Apparently she shouted in her sleep. The timing was uncanny, but her sleep talk saved me. Following morning, I was a wreck. My voice got hoarse, neck and shoulders ached, and there was a bruise on my chest. Last night's terror wasn't just any old nightmare. Nevertheless, I attended all my lectures and came back to dorm in the afternoon and took the elevator up, and the elevator cabin fell. Fortunately, it fell from the ground floor and I didn't get hurt, but it shook me to my core. My mind ran wild and could not shake off the feeling that it must have something to do with the night terror I had. My roommate was already back in the room. I had asked her if she remembered how she shouted the night earlier. She didn't seem to remember it. What she remembered was the dream she got. She found herself in an empty white space in the dream, except for a bed in the distance. Somebody was lying there, and it looked like me. So roommate approached. And the closer she got, the clearer she could see that some dark figure mounting on me. She knew it was a dangerous situation and started to run to chase it away. But the harder she ran, the faster the bed seemed to move away. Roommate tried to shout at it to leave me alone, but no voice came out from her mouth. She tried and tried until she squeezed all the air out down from her lower belly, that finally let her shout out. She then woke up, but felt still terrified. What if there really was somebody on my bed? What if she found me dead already? Took quite some time till she could open her eyes and look to my bed. To her relief, she saw me shifting my position, and she could fall back to sleep. Could all this be just coincidence? I still believe it was my roommate that saved me that night. Hi, it's Anthony here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Do you get sleep paralysis often yourself? Did you experience anything weird during a sleep paralysis episode? I'm not a deep sleeper, and often my real-life concerns and desires seep into my dreams, turning it into a nightmare. But sleep paralysis, I think I had only once, and nothing particular happened either. That's probably why I find these sleep paralysis stories more curious. If you enjoyed my work, please leave it a comment and a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. If you'd support me more directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee account. The link's in the description. Or alternatively, there's also super thanks on YouTube for a small donation too. Thank you for your support in any shape or form. Until next Sunday, stay safe and take care.